All right. I am so excited to be here today. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Association Chat, an online discussion where we warm ourselves by the virtual fire with topics of the day, welcoming thought leaders and trailblazers alike to join up in this online home for the community. I'm the host of Association Chat, Kiki L'Italien, and I want to give a big shout out, big thank you to our visionary Voyager sponsor, Big Red M, the go-to association growth partner, offering consulting, sales, research, and now publishing services too. Their support helps make this podcast and the upcoming Association Chat road trip to ASAE Annual possible. We also have some exciting news. This week, I'll be speaking at the Council of State Restaurant Associations in Cleveland for their summer conference about AI and marketing. And I'll have the chance to check out Cleveland, which I haven't really spent a lot of time in, before ASAE Annual and that road trip that we're taking. So, when we go on August 10th, and we go to Cleveland, I'm going to have it all scoped out for you and ready to go. We're taking 35 association professionals and Association Chat fans on the road with our big sponsors. Our Big Red M and Interesting Conversations Company will be there. And so finally with that, I want to branch into what you are all here for today. And that's our big topic. Joining us today is Jen Lewi, a executive coach, career strategist, and she's here to share her insights on transforming your side hustle into your full-time career. Jen's going to reveal the secrets to making the leap to securing your finances and turning your passion project into a professional reality. And this topic hits very close to home for me. I want to welcome you to Association Chat Podcast, Jen Lewi. Woo! Yay.
Hey, Kiki. Thanks so much for having me. And big thanks to Big Red M for hosting this. And I wish I could be coming on the road show with you all, but I will be in Cleveland too. So I'm excited to hear what you think.
I can't wait to see you there. I wish you were going with us too. Anything falls, I'm hearing that like the travel to the direct flights are running out between DC and Cleveland. And so if anybody needs, there's like one person that can't make it now. So there's a seat that opened up. So if anybody wants to go with us, we've got a seat open and we're leaving August 10th. Just going to put that out there.
That's good to know.
I know. I'm so excited.
I booked early. So
well,
I'm all set.
You would, because you are strategic. And in fact, that's part of what we want to talk about today. One of the great things about you, I met you at the AWTC. There's an award ceremony. We had a chance to get to talk. And you shared with me this personal journey, talking about transitioning from VP at a nonprofit to being a full-time executive coach and career strategist. And so I thought maybe what we could do is to talk a little bit about that move, because a couple of things. First, you're not the only person to tell me this story about like moving from doing this one thing, working with associations, to going out on your own. But another is, with things bouncing around and being so unpredictable right now, I don't know who isn't wondering, could my path end up going in a different direction? So that's why I'm really, really happy that you could join us today and that we could talk about this particular topic. But tell me the story. Let's talk about that transition.
Absolutely. And I think that I know you've had these types of transitions too. So I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on it. I firmly believe that as we evolve, our careers need to evolve with us. Mm-hmm. And the path we thought we were on may no longer serve us. And it's really important to pause every so often to see if we're still going in the right direction. And I think that's to some extent what's happened to me over the years. I've had a lot of career pivots at the senior level. I started out in advertising, and I was, in a big agency in New York and in Paris, and then went into marketing. So that was my first pivot for corporate, and then went into the association world and started out as VP of marketing. then pivoted to membership, pivoted to professional development, pivoted to career development and conferences. And so the next sort of path would have been CEO, right? Like just leading an association. And I think in the back of my mind, that was always there. But then when it became a possibility, I suddenly realized that was not the path I wanted. So I did a lot of soul searching around, well, if I don't want to move up, where do I want to go? And that was a really good clue. So I think for your listeners, if the path you're on doesn't seem to be the right path anymore, feels uncomfortable, go with that instinct, because that's a clue. And then I really fell in love with this concept called ikigai. It's a Japanese concept of having a reason to live. It's this concept that encourages people to discover what truly matters to them and live a life filled with purpose and joy. So it's not like having a work self and a work identity and then a personal self and a personal identity. It's really having an identity that merges both. And being somebody who's always been pretty passionate about work, that was something important to me. So I thought, okay, I'm going to figure out what my ikigai is. Realized that the patterns throughout my life were around coaching, whether it was working behind the scenes with volunteer leaders and coaching them to be their very best on stage, to coaching teams. And then this other area of meaning and finding meaning was always part of my life. My undergrad, I have an MBA, but my undergrad was actually in philosophy, which is about figuring out meaning in life. So all that together made me realize coaching was probably the area for me. And then from there, I worked with executive coaches to figure out what the next step could look like, what training I could take, and then how to ultimately build the side hustle.
See, I knew I liked you. I love the philosophy background. And it's just one thing that somebody can say about you is that you're not afraid to try new things. You're not afraid to go in new directions. And yet I think that, for a lot of people, they feel hung up on making some changes. It can feel very, very scary. Even if how do we say this? Ikigai. How do we say that? Ikigai.
Yeah.
Okay. Even if they're like, yeah, I want to work in another way that I've kind of heard this same sort of concept talked about is working in your zone of genius, right? Where you're trying to work in your zone of genius. And I can't remember his name. I love his book, where he talks about that. But that same sort of concept, it sounds like, it feels like even if people can connect with what that is, the jump to get there or the move to get there can seem just scary. And like there's a lot of uncertainty and fear around it. How do you know when it's time? How do you know when maybe you should make a move? I know in your article that you talked about, and I posted a link to it. I'll post a link to it again. That your latest article that was in Fast Company that had to do how to turn your side hustle into your career. You talk about finances. You talk about making sure your finances are where they need to be. How do you know when your side hustle or your finances you're financially in a spot where you can do this thing?
So first off, I have a whole other article coming out in Fast Company around finding your side hustle, because I think that's a big question. So it's, what is it that I want to do? So now we're assuming you've figured out what that is and that you've built something. So you've almost have a minimal viable product of what this thing is that you could do on the side, whether it's, video production and, you want to take your video production side hustle to become your main hustle. Like, how do you know financially that it will work? I think there's a lot of different elements. The first is having a reserve so that if suddenly you don't get any clients when you go for it, like you have something to fall back on and you're not in despair. I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
The next one is, what can you cut back on? Like really preparing your finances to cut back on certain things. I'll give you an example. This one's really funny. During the pandemic, I have 2 daughters, and obviously we couldn't go anywhere, but where we did go was the car wash. And we would put the music on really loud and have a dance in the car wash, in the
Oh
car.
my gosh. I love this.
It was great. However, after the pandemic, we never really used the car wash. Like I never washed my car, but I was still paying $25 a month for that
For
subscription.
that car wash. That was your, it
It was
the
really
entertainment side of our budget. Now.
So anyway, so that's an example. Like look at your credit card and see what you're spending on that you might not need anymore. Like I had all these gym memberships. I didn't need that many gym memberships.
Mhm.
Really looking at cutting back. And then the other thing is managing expectations with your family. So I have 2 teenagers, and I said, look, mom's gonna go out on her own. That all that stuff I've been buying you, I'm not gonna be able to buy as much for you. So they got jobs, and I actually think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a combination of managing expectations, also managing what your expectations are for how much you're gonna make. And, my goal was to just cover expenses the first year. I was not expecting to make as much as I made at the association. And part of it is what's priceless is the flexibility you get, right? You're building your own thing. And now you can decide when you're working and when you're not working. And to me, that in some sense is priceless.
That's true. I mean, I think you do bring that on. That financial question, there's so many association people live in the DC metro area, and we all know how expensive it can be. Cost of living there is pretty high. And I know that a lot of people, and I see LinkedIn user over here says, yay for teenagers who work. Yeah, no kidding, right? I have a teenager, needs to get a job. So, she's getting there, right?
It's hard.
I have to say that when I went out on my own and started my consultancy for the first time, here's how it started for me. It started with having one person who said, if I could be your client, and you just work on my project, I could pay you X amount of dollars. And I saw dollar signs, and I knew that I wanted to try to go out on my own at some point. And I thought, oh, well, that will be a nice foundation for all the other business that will come in. It's that all the other business that would come in that I really, looking back on it, I probably should have had a little bit more strategy going into it, a little bit more savings going into it. Because what happens if that one client, that one major foundational client that you have goes away or decides to cut back or decides to pause or whatever it is? And sure enough, eventually that was the thing that happened with me. And I found myself going, oh, here I did this thing and I made this big leap and I wasn't quite prepared the way that I should have been. So I think your advice is really good based on what I've experienced and observed. The people in our industry or in the association industry who I've witnessed do a pretty good job of growing their consultancies or taking care of themselves and their families pretty well has been when they start out with a little bit of a plan and they've got some savings built up so that they can weather any financial storms that come their way.
Absolutely. And I think, you're talking about having an anchor client, which is absolutely wonderful if you can do that. The other concept that I'm just going to put forward, at least in coaching, is that there are organizations that provide coaching that you can work with. So for example, I became a coach for BetterUp more as a security piece in case I would have no clients, right?
Right.
And then the third area is sometimes people build a side hustle, but they don't have to go the entrepreneurial way. Like for coaching, again, you could become a coach for an organization. So basically, you're pivoting your career, but maybe it's pivoting it to do something different for someone else. And that's sort of another backup strategy, right? Like if in the first year it doesn't work out at all, where can I take this new skill set that I've built, that I'm passionate about, and use it for them? So that's another area.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that those are things, the partnerships, the collaborations, the natural sort of organic connections you can make with others. Um, all things, great ideas, things I ended up doing in my own life, things that I didn't start out doing when I went on my own. Basically, when people come and talk to me about my experience, which I had my own business for over 10 years. But I've got to tell you, I probably made every mistake you could possibly make and then some. And can tell you all the things not to do. So, like, listening to your advice is fantastic because I can say for sure it's definitely the right way to start, the right way to go all the way through. The savings before making the leap. I love the idea that you were looking through and saying, what can I cut out? What do I not need to have? I think the conversation that you had with your children about it, like, let's talk about expectations and what might be changing around the house too. And by the way, I don't want to emphasize all this stuff that's scary or bad, but I think this is really important to talk about. Like, you have other people in your lives, probably friends who might expect you to continue to go out or vacation with them the way that you used to. Kids who might expect you to, like, be able to buy all the things exactly when they need it, or when they want it. And let's not even talk about, like, partners, right? Who are going to be over here saying, wait a second, you don't know exactly when you're going to get that invoice paid by somebody. Like, what does that mean for how we're operating together with our finances? So I think that, like, those discussions, that's a really interesting piece you brought up, is how you're talking to the people around you.
Absolutely. And I think, your partner obviously is number one to talk this over with. The other piece, I don't know if you found this, Kiki, but like for me, how you get paid when you're on your own is so radically different than getting a steady paycheck.
Yeah.
So I have two types of clients. I have organizations and then I have individuals. The individuals pay me in advance and then I owe them for months. And so the money comes in early and then, I need to kind of obviously deliver. With organizations, it's sort of the opposite. You deliver the work and then you wait. You send your invoice and you wait like 30 days, sometimes 60 days to get paid. So it's so uncertain. And that's why that savings is really important. So you have a little bit of buffer for those times where there's nothing coming in, but something's going to come in later.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the other piece, is I think that when people are looking at making that transition into some other kind of role, and really big in my mind as I'm thinking about this is, obviously, in the association space, you see a lot of examples of people who move from being an association executive to being a consultant. Or working for a consulting agency, going out on their own, and then being an association executive for a while. And and there's a lot of moving around, also working in the industry partner space, where you go and you might be working for a software firm that supports associations or something like that. And all of it is a little bit different and it's a different perspective. But that piece where you're turning your knowledge, or you're going into consulting, or you're starting your own side hustle, maybe you're starting your own, I don't know, software business or something like that. That piece is really scary because it is this leap of faith. And if you're not thinking about the different ways that revenue can come in, like diversifying, this is where I get paid up front. This is where this is something where I might have to wait a little while. Then you can find yourself in those highs and lows in a more dramatic fashion than if you were to sit there and think, you know what, maybe I need one of both types of clients to start out. Or maybe there's something where my savings, I hit a certain amount where I feel a little bit more stable going into this, so that I'm not sort of running scared out of the gate.
Absolutely. And I think that it is scary, right? Like you've got to accept the fact that it's not as certain as what you've been used to, but you've got to kind of go with that fear. As the great philosopher Taylor Swift says, being fearless is having a lot of fears, but you jump in anyway. I'm trying to say it like Taylor would. And I
Yes,
think
I love
that's
it.
true. Like you go with the fear.
Yeah, go with the fear. Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit more. What about for people who jump into it and they discover, hey, I'm really great at this one part. I love the working with the clients, and I love doing the work part of it. I hate this running a business piece of it. I hate the day-to-day aspects of that. And that was certainly me, like dealing with invoices, dealing with the stuff behind the scenes. I was not inclined to want to spend the time on that bookkeeping part of it. And it took me a while before I got to the part where, like I found a service that would do that. But in the beginning, I wanted to do it all by myself.
I think that is such a good point. And, in the article, I mentioned this as well, but it's very different taking a passion and turning it into a career, right? Your passion could be cycling, your passion could be baking.
Mm-hmm.
But then are you ready to run a bakery? Like that's no longer just baking stuff, right? Now you're dealing with personnel, you're dealing with accounting, you're dealing with customers. You're no longer in that passion area of just making the things that you love to make. And I think that's a really important question to ask yourself. So, for example, you might find in your side hustle that so let's go with the baking analogy. You're selling some pies on the side. Great. But you might want to just keep it as something fun you're doing on the side rather than something that your family and your entire income is dependent on. I think asking yourself those questions is really important. And then to your point, are you ready to do all the things that are required for running a business? I actually think association professionals who wear so many hats are well positioned to go entrepreneurial because they deal with so many moving parts. They tend to have a lot of exposure and are responsible for budgets and finance. And they tend to have a hand in everything. And you kind of need to do that when you take your side hustle and make it your main hustle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so what are some of the I guess steps that you should take to sort of make sure that you're a good fit for the market that you're going into? And by the way, I just want to say that you've got some people who are loving the baking analogies. Joe says, great baking analogy, Jen. And then LinkedIn user says, sometimes when folks switch from association exec to consultant, they are treated persona non grata by the association industry. And I've definitely seen how that's worked. It can be really strange to go through that because you're like, I'm one of you, but I'm one of you, and it is strange to see how that can change based off of your title. That maybe it's even some of the same people that you've connected with before, but it changes the dynamic. So I think that's worthwhile in mentioning too.
Absolutely. Like for me, this has happened to me with my old association, the School Nutrition Association. I'm very excited that I'm going to be speaking at their conference. So I'm no longer organizing the conference. I'm speaking at their conference. But now I'm in a different category, right? Whereas, I'd stay in the headquarters hotel automatically and I would, all the costs would be offset. But more importantly, it was like I was one of them. Now I'm in a different position. I still feel like they're my community and I adore them, but it's definitely a different feeling that you need to adjust to. There's a little bit more distance. And that's okay, but it's an adjustment.
It is an adjustment, especially if you connect very deeply with the role that you had in a place and those connections with others. Some of them will stay the same, those personal relationships. And some of them, it just shifts with like your title has shifted, like your role has shifted, and it will just change. And it can be a little bit, I don't want to say nerve wracking. It can be a little bit confusing and maybe it rattle you a little bit when you're tied into very closely with that identity that you have in that role, which I did as an association executive. And before I went into doing consulting, it was a strange transition and change for me. And I think, thankfully Association Chat has helped me to continue to talk with all kinds of people and explore all these different perspectives. But that was definitely a challenge, who am I when I'm not this role anymore?
And that you bring up a great point, which is just that whole concept of identity and a change of identity. When you take your side hustle and you turn it into your main hustle, there's a new identity that's going with that. And I think it's really important to talk about how you reposition yourself to your network. That piece is critical because they've always thought of you as one way. Oh, Kiki does X. And then suddenly you're doing something completely different. Thinking through not only how you're adapting, but how you're helping your network adapt to this new identity is really important. And I think with that goes that uncertainty of, oh, okay, I'm no longer exactly one of them. But you know what? I'm in this new space where I can offer different type of thought leadership and ideas for these people that I love working with.
Yeah. So here's the other thing. And I'd started to go down this path, but I got a little distracted by even just talking to you. So because so many great ideas. But the thing that I wanted to ask, that I started to ask, was really that product, that marketplace fit, right?
Mm.
It's like, do I have the right thing to offer to this particular marketplace at the right time? And do I need to maybe reframe it or think about it in a different way? And that's definitely a challenge that I've seen a lot of people have, where it's like they are really sort of focused on this one type of way that they want to engage with the marketplace, and yet it's not exactly the right time or the right fit for what people are needing at that time or wanting them for. So how do you suggest that people play with that maybe before they take the jump, so they don't have to pivot and make a lot of changes, but can start out on a better foot?
I think that's so important. Understanding your positioning, your market fit, if you have an audience for what you're offering. So I'll give you an example for myself. There's a bazillion coaches out there, and there's a bazillion people calling themselves coaches. So really making sure that you have the right certifications that give you the credibility that you need to succeed. It was very important for me. And I started out as an executive coach, which, I can help people with leadership development. I can help people on the job make things sort of easier for them and dealing with difficult situations. I do all of those things. But I realized the area that I was most excited about and the area the market was responding most to was around this idea of career strategy and the idea of, am I in the right place I want to be in now? Do I want to change careers? If so, what does that look like? And in many ways, that positioning is still allowing me to do the other stuff. So for example, I have a client I've had for over 3 years now. He came to me and he said, "Lexan, I want to change jobs. I hate my job. I hate my boss." And actually, he's still in the organization. He's risen through the ranks and he's at a very, very senior level. And by working together, we realized actually his issue was with his boss primarily. He actually loved what he did. And so it was executive coaching, and I am his executive coach, but it came in through this idea of career strategy. And so I think thinking through what is the pain point your audience has is really important as you think about the market fit. and what you
Yeah.
want to offer. And also thinking about, what is it that I like to do? So
Yeah.
if the market wants one thing and you don't like to do it, there's a real issue. And your side hustle is a great way to experiment with that.
Side hustle is a great way to experiment. It's a great way to, figure out what you really enjoy doing, the parts that you may not enjoy doing so much. Let's say you've discovered, you want to make that jump. You've decided it's time. I have the name of my business. I know what I want to focus on. I know who my bookkeeper is going to be. I know all these different things. But then there are those relationships that you want to take care of. You want to make a graceful exit, perhaps, from your current job. How can people manage that piece of it? Manage that sort of, I don't know, that moving away from doing I'm working for this organization and it's time for me to make my exit move in a way that's going to, I don't know, sort of be healthy and positive, and so that everybody is feeling good and excited about this sort of move versus going in a different direction, let's say.
It's a real partnership, in my opinion, with the organization that you're about to leave. So first off, this is a whole other area, but when you build your side hustle, I believe you need to be really transparent with your organization. Mm-hmm. So assuming you've had full transparency, and even if you haven't, which I don't recommend, but let's say you've built the side hustle on the side, this organization is what allowed you to build your company, if you think about it. They were paying you, and on the side, hopefully in the evenings and on weekends, you were building this other business. You owe them a graceful exit. You owe them a transition plan. You owe them plenty of notice. So for me, I had stayed at my organization for a very long time. So I had told the head of HR and my CEO very early on, months and months ahead of time, to say, this is what I'm thinking. We planned the timing together. And so we planned the announcement plan to the board and to the team. I made sure that, because I'd been there for so long, all that knowledge that was in my head, that institutional knowledge, was somehow written or communicated to others. And I think that's so important. Now I feel like I have a really good relationship with my old organization, and they had my back. Like, they were really excited for me to do this. And I think that's really important for people to be transparent and honor the organization that allowed you to build this.
Right. You don't split and leave just because you're fired up and you're like, wow, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do this thing. See ya. It's like,
absolutely.
You definitely want to make sure that you are not just leaving on good terms, but like in your case, you had cheerleaders. You had people who were like really rooting for you because of the way that you had brought them along on your journey. I have a good friend of mine who said, people don't want to watch from the sidelines. They want to join your parade, like they want to be in it. They want to be a part of it. And so being part of your story, I think, allows people to see that they still have that place and that they can still, it's not like you're going, okay, I've had my needs are fulfilled with you now. I'm ready to move on, I will say I have a couple of comments over here from LinkedIn. The shocking silence of your email box is really difficult to adjust to when you start your own business. An organization, you're plugged into a lot of people, meetings, deadlines, etc. Having that disappear leaves a hole in your life. Oh, that's interesting. That's from Cecilia Sepp. And that is such a good point. It's like, ooh, tumbleweeds, what's happening? I was so busy with all of this stuff coming in. And now it's like me and like, me. So
I mean, yes, 100%. And I would say that's where community is more important than ever. Mm-hmm. I have to say, I never did a really great job networking. I didn't like the concept of networking. I mean, I definitely cared so much about the people I worked with and my members, but the
Mm-hmm.
idea of networking beyond my organization was such a low priority for the longest time for me. Also, I was a mom, my family lives away, like there's just no time in my opinion. And
Yeah.
I realized how important networking is to not only meet people for potential clients, but really to have that group of people that you can reach out to when it's lonely or who are going through the same thing. So I really needed to expand my network. And that was also part of my side hustle initiative, which was meeting new people beyond the community that I knew.
Okay, so let's talk about that. How did you go about that once you realized that that was an area that you needed to grow in? What did you do? How'd you go about it? And how do you advise people to go about it today?
So first off, I would say networking is really important at any stage in your career. So make time for it. That's a mistake I made, I think, a
Mhm.
long time ago, and I'm making up for it now. I also really reframe the idea of networking as building community
Mhm.
and the idea of not like give and take so much as expanding the people you know, meeting more friends and acquaintances. It's that simple. And then there's a lot less pressure on this idea. Um, for me, transparency was really important, and I did not want to have anybody in the association space or my members be my potential clients. So
Mm.
besides friends, I didn't really have many opportunities to have new clients. So that was a real impetus to expand my network. I joined a lot of online communities and professional communities, but the one differentiator for me was joining Chief, which is a network for women, and it helps women empower women. It's not a cheap membership, that's for sure, but it really helped me build my community during that time. Not only clients, but other women entrepreneurs, other women who were doing similar things to me. And that has helped me build more community and more camaraderie so that my inbox doesn't feel as empty. There's always something going on.
Yeah. You had mentioned Chief before, and I did just put into the comments. It might only be showing up in YouTube live right now, but I'll try to go and post this in LinkedIn after this, an article that you wrote talking about these lessons that the associations can learn from Chief and your experience there. Just put that into the comments over on YouTube, and I'll share that in a little bit because I think that that article would help people know. I mean, that's definitely been a topic that I've heard people talk about in the association space. It's just, you know, what are some of these organizations like Chief? What are they offering that maybe we need to learn from, that how we can become better at being associations and connecting people to the opportunities and the community that they really need. And so it's interesting to hear this story and to see how it really helped you.
Absolutely. I would encourage people to read the article because it features association professionals who joined Chief and how Chief really differentiates itself. It's ridiculously expensive to join. However, their model to me is what an association would look like now if we built it
Mhm.
from the ground up. It's all about meeting other people. There's so many virtual connections, and the members are the subject matter experts. So members actually put on the training.
Wow.
And I think it's just a really great opportunity for associations to learn from organizations like these.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And, I know people, I have friends who are not at all aware of what associations even really are. Even if we've been friends for a long time, they're in a totally different industry, and they don't think about it like that. But they talk to me about Chief, right? And I think, I mean, it's kind of like an association, like that's what you're doing here. And it is fascinating to me. I've been very curious. I think if I had more hours and more time, I would probably join just for the sheer curiosity of understanding. So I'm going to have to talk to you more about this and read your article several times and that sort of thing to really get it. But yeah, I think the community part is so important. And I will say, obviously, you took that to heart, because I think about how I met you myself, and the fact that we met at an event where it was sort of a networking event. And then this manifested into more involvement with association chat, and then getting involved in like the interviews on the podcast. And it's like that kind of opportunity that happens from making other connections and connecting with more people, right? And so
Absolutely.
Who knows?
And it's hard to do. Like, I'm somebody who loves curling up with a good book or hanging out with my family and watching Netflix. So
going through the car wash,
going through the car wash, right? But that's so insular.
Yeah. No one else is watching you in the car wash when you dance. I know.
Exactly.
You really need to do that again. I think maybe you need to look at that membership again. That sounds like something I need to start doing. I don't know.
Why don't we go do that?
Yeah, we can do it together. All right. Yeah. I mean, it is. I think that the community is so good. Creativity is a piece of all of this. I think that is a huge part of what you're talking about, whether it's about, creating dance parties, going through your car wash, or if you're talking about going into your side hustle and saying, okay, let's turn this into a full-time thing. What did making that transition and going into following your passion, following this new direction, what else did that unlock for you aside from new ways to bring money in and that kind of thing? It's like, can you share how that maybe unlocked new types of energy and ideas for you when you made that move?
Oh my goodness. It unlocked so much. First off, as you said, you realize that you have this community rooting for you. So all these people in your network, people you may not have seen forever, have your back. And that's really exciting because they want you to succeed. In many ways, you're making a leap for them too, because a lot of people want to make a leap like this. Mm-hmm. And so that's really fun. I will say, I thought, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to coach individuals. Like, that was my plan. And that was sort of how I had financially forecasted and planned my business. And so many amazing, unexpected things have come up through my network, mostly. Like, I really haven't pursued these opportunities. This has all been through networks. So the opportunity to facilitate has come up for me a lot, and facilitate on the topic of career strategy. So for example, you mentioned AWTC. I'm actually building this amazing community of women, of small groups of women who are helping each other build their professional roadmaps. So that came up as an awesome opportunity. I'm working with this other group to build career strategy for big companies. So getting employees to meet each other and think about how they want to show up at work and what their career paths could look like at work. So it's incredible that it's rooted in what I love, and there's all these other opportunities. I will say, again, having that little buffer allows you to say no to work. So some work so a lot of things come up. They're like, oh, you're free. How about this? Which is wonderful. But sometimes it really allows you to say, you know what, even though that would supplement my income and be a good idea, it's not a good fit for my ikigai, for my vision. So anyway, so all this to say, I think when you take that leap, the universe has your back. I really believe that. And it unlocks so much opportunity and excitement and joy and freedom.
So for the people who are out there listening right now, who are still very much on the fence, and they have been thinking about this and considering it for quite a while. By the way, I know some people like this who they've been straddling making this decision for years, plural. What kind of advice or encouragement would you give them to help them to make that decision? What
A
would you
lot.
tell them?
So first off, I would say, imagine yourself 20 to 30 years in the future, looking back on this time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you knew that taking that leap would make you successful, how would you feel?
Right.
And then if you looked at this time and you took the leap and you weren't successful, how would you feel? And it's probably not binary, right? Like
Yeah.
nobody's going to just completely fail. It's kind of more ambiguous. You're going to do okay. You might not just do as well, but I think people would often say, if I didn't take that leap, I would regret it. So that's the first thing. I think there's a lot of regret in not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing, and I'm not trying to promote myself, is I worked with coaches throughout the process. I worked with one coach to figure out, okay, I wanted to go into coaching. What's the best way to do it? And then I worked with another who really helped me think through the fear
Mm-hmm.
and the practicality of, okay, what does it look like? But also this mindset of, if I make that leap, what are the good things that could come from it? And so I think part of it is a mindset and walking with that fear.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the third is just talking to your partner and your family and saying, how can we make this work?
Yeah.
Because this is
Yeah.
something I really want to try.
Yeah. I like all of that. I think those discussions are so super important to have. The regret question. I mean, would I regret this? Would I regret not taking this chance or making this move down the line? I know for me, that's been a pretty powerful motivator where, I thought, this is such an interesting opportunity. I may not be successful, but I just kind of have to do this just because I'm so curious to see what's going to happen and what I'm going to learn along the way. And I will say that most of the collaborations that I've had have had that element where it's kind of like, there's seasons for relationships, and it's like there's seasons for all kinds of relationships, including the professional ones, where it's like I worked with this group and it's like it's not the right fit forever, but I learned so much from the time that I was there and what I was doing. And that's okay too. Sometimes part of the answer is understanding that, there can be more than one transition that you're going through in order, along your journey, that it's not just clear cut all the time, exactly how these things play out. So, and
Absolutely.
I see someone that says, amen to coaching, put the oxygen mask on yourself before attempting to help other passengers. Absolutely. I was actually going to ask about this because, the obvious next question might be, how do I even find the right kind of coach? How do I know? You talked about having coaches. I think that there are a lot of questions about how do I sort of go out there, find out who some good coaches are. Is it okay to like talk to them first and figure out if there's a good fit? And what is that? What's the ideal sort of situation to make that relationship, to find the right pairing?
Absolutely. I would love to answer that. But first, I want to just go back to your last question around the regret piece. I also think there's a false sense of security that people have in their current jobs. They
Mm,
think their
mm,
jobs are so secure that it's much more secure than taking their side hustle to become their main hustle. But it might not be as secure as they think, especially now with people losing jobs, especially at senior levels. So it's not as secure as you think. And that false sense of security might be preventing you from taking that leap. So I just want to mention that.
yeah. That's
Going
great.
back to the question about coaching. So I really encourage people to talk to at least 3 coaches. I'm an ASAE vetted coach. So ASAE has a bunch of vetted coaches. So you can go on to their ASAE headquarters and the career headquarters and find different coaches and talk to them. And I do think there's coaches for different things. For example, you might want to have a coach who's coming in to deal with team issues and making the team more cohesive. That could be a very different type of person than the person who's going to help you with taking a leap. So think about so I really needed two different types of coaches. Now they both could have helped me, but I also think it's nice changing it up and hearing different perspectives. Let's see. I think also comparing their methodologies and their prices and how they work with you. I would also say you definitely want a coach who is ICF certified. There are a lot of coaches out there, and some are legit and some are not as legit, unfortunately. So definitely look for somebody with that ICF certification.
Yeah, I've heard that before. And, I think that that's really great advice. I want to mention thanks to all the people who have been listening and commenting along the way. Cecilia was saying, great insight. She has to go to her next meeting. Lisa DiCarlo, oh, this woman, so talented. She says, thank you for the insightful conversation. I would love to talk to Lisa to find out like what she's got going on. Is multi-talented in so many different ways. And we have Justin who says, I agree with your assessment regarding false sense of security. Yeah. Full-time W-2 positions are not secure. Their benefit comes from a steady, predictable income while you have the position, but they are not a guarantee of employment. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that was something that I saw Cecilia say earlier, no job is secure, but we fool ourselves with the regular paycheck. That can be something that I think a lot of people are sort of, it is locking them into that position of I'm going to stay here because it's more secure than going out on my own. When I have to say, having the ability to be agile and adapt and you sort of control a number of different aspects in your life, that freedom you were talking about before, that also has a great amount of benefit as well. So
absolutely. And you open up freedom to learn.
Freedom to learn.
When you're working full time, you often need to upskill in the area that is related to your work, which is fine. But you sometimes get stagnant in your learning. And so when you're on your own, you can learn anything and about anything. And it's so exciting. And I think that's really important, taking into account the new technologies and anything to make your work more seamless is super important when you're on your own. And I know for me, like an area that I'm always looking at is AI and the influence of AI on coaching. But I'm very lucky to be part of that conversation for Better Up. So all this to say, I just think it opens up so much freedom, and you can put a time limit on it too. Like, for example, you can say, I'm going to take this and I'm going to try it out for 2 years or 3 years. And then if it doesn't work out, I can go back to a regular job.
Yep, absolutely. I gotta say, I mean, I knew that when we were going to have this conversation that we were going to have a good time, that it was going to be interesting. But I really think that it was hopefully even more helpful than just interesting, because I do think that there are a lot of questions about this particular topic that people are endlessly interested in it just because there is so much uncertainty around us. There are so many people who have many different areas in which they can pursue their careers and change their lives. You can have multiple careers throughout your lifetime and be wildly successful in all of them, right? And so when is it the right time? Just because you started out in real estate doesn't mean you can't change to associations, doesn't mean you can't change into being a coach. There's all kinds of ways that you can engage with your life and to provide a service to other people. And so it's wonderful to talk to you about all of this. I do want to put up here, if people are watching this live, or even if you're watching this later, on fastcompany.com, if you go, you can search under Jennifer Lewi, you look under her name. I put the link up here, and I'll put the link below after the live live stream has ended, but you can actually see all of her articles that are posted there. If you want to go back and like read, because Jen, you've written about a lot of different topics. And so that's a great place to go and kind of catch up on some of that writing. And then if you want to follow Jen, this is her LinkedIn. So connect with her, follow her, see what's going on, find out maybe about coaching, and some of the different ways that Jen interacts with the world. And definitely check out designyournextstep.com. All right. So, okay. So as we're going into, talking about the rest of the week and the rest of our lives and applying all of these things, the great things that we've talked about today, you got to tell me, when you were going through the car wash, dancing in the car with your daughters and having that little dance session, were there any go-to songs? Were there any like tunes that you just had to listen to? Did you have a favorite?
So we played like the Black Eyed Peas, which was funny. We also played a lot of Taylor. At the time, they were really into Taylor Swift. So, I quoted her as well.
Yes.
So I think those are the go-tos. And sometimes we just turn on the radio and just, put something up there. But it really got us through the pandemic. I know that's ridiculous, but like we'd go multiple times a day just to kind of have our dance party. We'd be like, do you want to go get to the dance party? Let's go have a dance party. And we pop in the car. It was just ridiculous.
Your car was never so clean. People were like, oh my gosh, we're all locked inside, but my God, that car is clean. Oh,
that's
like
right.
As it's going down the road.
It was worth the $25 a month for sure. Unlimited car wash.
I love it. I love it so much. Oh, so wonderful time. Great people who are listening in and saying, excellent topic, great discussion, many great insights. Jen, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Got to have you back. We got to talk more about this stuff. There were so many different ways. We could have gone down so many different paths with this.
I'd love to come back anytime. Maybe we can do it in the car wash next time.
Ooh, I
Play some
mean,
music.
It's a challenge that I am willing to take. So like that's one thing I've never done. I've never done an association chat interview from a car wash.
There you go. We could try it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I cut Jen off. Oh my gosh. Wasn't this great? I mean, I had such a blast talking with Jen. I'm so thankful that she joined me on association chat and talked with you and talked with me about all of these great ideas that go into being brave and jumping out, or maybe not, maybe you're staying where you are and exploring your side hustle on the side for a while before you decide to take that leap. But the point is that you think about it, that you think through it, and maybe get some good help to help you to suss out what makes sense along the way. I want to just say thanks one more time to Jen. I want to thank all of you listeners for tuning in. You always make this a worthwhile effort and a worthwhile adventure. And so remember, you can revisit this episode and others on the website. Don't hesitate to share what you think. We tried a different format today. I tried, recording this, streaming this in a different format. Not sure how that worked. So we're going to have to find out. So let me know in the comments what you think. I'm signing off and reminding you to stay curious and to keep asking questions every day. As Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Have a great rest of the week, everyone.